Today, I'm going to share a revelation that got me thinking about the ways we talk to ourselves, and it completely transformed my approach to dating and self talk. What if I told you that the way you're expressing your dating preferences might be secretly sabotaging your love life? I want you to stay with me as I share the science behind how our brains process language and why changing just a few words could transform your entire dating experience. Welcome to Intentionally Single, Seeking But Not Settling. I'm Lauren Jean, your host, integrative wellness coach, and hypnotist. Each week, we explore mindset shifts and mind-body strategies to help you live life intentionally single and content while remaining open to possibilities. Unlike typical dating advice, we focus on personal fulfillment to attract genuine love. Join us to transform unconscious patterns and embrace your intentionally single lifestyle. Stop feeling deflated by the dating world and start prioritizing the most important relationship, the one with yourself. Welcome back to Intentionally Single, Seeking Not Settling. I am your host, Lauren Jean. And today we're going to look at a psychological phenomenon that might be keeping you stuck in those icky patterns that you're actively trying to get away from. And it all started with an unexpected epiphany that I had at a gas station a few weeks ago. All right, so picture this in your head. I'm standing at the gas pump, pumping my gas, and pondering the last chapter I had read in my hypnosis textbook while the tank is filling up, and it's freezing cold, by the way. Suddenly, something just kind of clicks. You know when something clicks in your head? This is what I had. The chapter I was reading had explained how our brains process language, and at that moment, I realized why so many of us keep attracting exactly what we're trying to avoid in our dating lives. The answer was hiding right in plain sight, in the words we use to describe what we want. And you know when you hear something right at that perfect time and everything makes complete sense, that click? All right, this was me right at the gas station, and I got really excited. I couldn't wait to get home to get this down onto paper. All right, so let's get more into this because I'm really excited about it. So this is all based from my hypnosis textbooks, and I did a little bit more research into this topic. So neuroscience research has revealed in their journals and their online papers that when we use negative words like don't, won't, can't, or never, even more than that, our brains actually activate the exact same circuits that we use to stop physical actions. So think about that for a moment. When you say, I don't want an emotionally available partner, your brain is actually trying to put on the brakes really hard. Just like when you stop trying yourself from like grabbing the last piece of cake, like really trying to stop yourself. So instead of finding someone who is there for you emotionally, you find the exact opposite because that's what your brain hears. It's pretty incredible how that works, and I want to break it down a little bit more to make it understandable. So, scientists have found that processing these negative statements requires more neural effort than positive ones. So, negativity is going to take more energy from your brain, from your mind, from your body than positive ones. And it's like telling someone, don't think about a purple giraffe. What is the first thing or the first image that is going to pop into that person's head? And I know that you probably had this happen to yourself right now. A purple giraffe is going to pop into your head. I know it did for mine. It's impossible to stop that. So your brain must first imagine that purple giraffe before trying to not imagine the purple giraffe. Does that make sense, right? So I'll mention that again. So your brain must first imagine that purple giraffe before trying not to imagine the purple giraffe. You're hearing not, right? That's the negative word that I'm using right there. Try not to imagine the purple giraffe. It's immediately telling your mind to imagine the purple giraffe because your mind is not getting the not. It's not taking in that negative word, that negative feeling, that negative sensation. This phenomenon helps explain why we often manifest exactly what we're trying to avoid in our dating lives. All right, so let's get into this more with some examples. When you keep saying to yourself or anyone, I don't want another narcissist, that's exactly what you keep attracting. The brain is laser focused on identifying narcissistic traits, making you this hyper vigilant, crazy person about them. And guess what? You're going to start seeing them everywhere, even in healthy behaviors. Your mind is just going to like pick them out all over the place. It's that reticular activating system that I told you about the mind in a couple episodes ago. It starts to pick out what you're focused on. And if you're focused on not trying to attract a narcissist, your brain is not saying the I don't want another narcissist. It's just saying another narcissist. Really think about that. Here's a personal example from myself. I used to constantly tell myself I don't want to be involved with anyone because I don't want to deal with their shit. Looking back, I can see how this created this pattern of me either overwhelming partners with my own shit, because it can go both ways, or attracting men with lots of issues. My brain was so focused on the concept of getting exhausted with others' issues that it actually created these situations where that became the central issue. And it was finding men with issues. Think about someone who keeps saying, I don't want to be alone. Their brain is focusing on being alone because their brain is not recognizing the I don't want. That don't is the key word. Their brain focuses on being alone, and they start operating from a place of fear, which often leads to a bunch of things. First, clinging to these unfulfilling relationships, then making choices from scarcity rather than abundance, projecting an energy of desperation that actually pushes potential partners away, and also missing the red flags because they're so focused on avoiding the loneliness that they're actually attracting the loneliness. All right, let's get more into this because I am really excited about this topic, and I really want you to take this information and really start to notice these patterns in your own thinking, in your texting, in your writing, in your dating profile. We're going to go all into that. And I'm going to make it really simple so that you can take this and apply it and start using it like today. So some of the research from my textbook that prompted this episode is scientists studying brain activity actually discovered that when we use negative words, our brains activate this special inhibitory circuits, and it's the same ones we use to stop ourselves from doing something. This is what I mentioned before. So this means every time you say, I don't want drama, your brain is literally practicing the concept of drama while at the same time trying to put the brakes on. It's trying to do two things at the same time, which is something that your mind cannot do. Your brain can only focus on one task at a time, regardless of hearing about multitasking. It's just not possible to focus on two things at the same time while getting results. It's like your brain has to rehearse the very thing that you are trying to avoid over and over, like I mentioned before about the purple giraffe. The negative statements require your brain to work much harder than positive ones. So imagine that you have to use your conscious mind to tell you how to walk, and you have to imagine each step you have to take. It's like learning how to walk again. It's much more mentally taxing than simply focusing on your destination because you have to picture and mentally use the energy on each step. That is exhausting. Our brains process spoken and written negative statements differently. I'll repeat that again. Our brains process spoken and written negative statements differently. When we read negative statements word by word, like in text messages or dating profiles, our brain actually struggles more than when we hear them in natural conversation. This could be why those thoughtfully what I don't want lists in dating profiles. So, like if you see someone's dating profile and it says what they don't want, these can backfire and bite you in the ass. I'm going to share 5 research back steps to transform this dating communication, make it more clear for yourself and the person that you are trying to attract. So, first, let's look at the dating profile and how you can rewrite it. I want you to take your dating profile and highlight every negative statement. Count them, really count them. Write these down. All right. If you're not going to highlight them, write them down on a piece of paper or put them in your notes on your phone. Count them. Studies show that our brains need this extra processing power for each negative statement. Now, here where comes where you can transform it. Rewrite each one as a positive intention. So, for example, instead of saying no drama, right? I see that a lot. Express what you do want, seeking emotional maturity, something like that. Rather than writing, don't waste my time, try ready for a meaningful connection. And when you find yourself writing not into games, replace it with values directed communication. All right, so that's a way that you can look at your dating profile. I hope you're seeing the points here that I'm making. We're taking the negative statements and turning them into a positive statement. All right, so let's focus on where our messages get really confusing. I know from personal experience, text communication can be incredibly difficult to understand. It gets taken wrong by the other person. Someone might get upset. You have this communication that's totally effed up. So, written negative statements, are really difficult for our brains to process. When texting someone that you haven't met yet, but are planning or hoping to go on a date with, scan your messages. Like when you're typing something out, scan it before you send it. I know this might seem like a little bit much work, but I want you to practice and see how this will affect the other person and even yourself. Like, use this as practice. All right, so before you actually send the message, like you click send, check your words for anything that is negative: a don't, a won't, a can't, a never, anything else that feels or looks like it's negative. Like if you were to receive it, if it's negative, you need to reframe that. Take a moment and rewrite using positive language. So, example, for instance, instead of saying, I don't like making plans last minute, this is something that I have said, totally admitting it. Try something like, I appreciate when we can plan ahead. And this small change will make a significant difference in how your message is received and processed by the other person's brain. Now, the third step involves upgrading your internal dialogue, which to me is the most important, because when you can upgrade your internal dialogue, this is something that will be practiced in your own mind, and then it will start to naturally come out in text communication, your dating, anywhere else that you're using any kind of language. So again, negative statements activate our brain's inhibitory circuits, the same ones we use to stop the physical actions, like I said before. So this means every time you think, I don't want to be alone, your brain is actually rehearsing the concept of being alone. When you catch a negative thought, I want you to immediately write it or think its positive counterpart. Make it a habit to review and repeat your positive statements during your morning routine, something that I did for so long, and I started doing it throughout my entire day. This practice will help to rewire your brain's default patterns of negativity. I did this as a daily practice many, 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 many years ago, and now years of practice is now automatic for me. It does take a lot of conscious practice, like when you're first learning to drive a car and you need to realize that you need to, this is an example that I use with my daughter as she's actually learning to drive a car. She's not aware that you can't just like push on the brake really hard at a stop sign because you're going to give everyone whiplash. So I taught her to slowly go down or slowly put her foot down and slowly come to a stop. So this takes conscious practice, as does learning how to drive a car. All right, so the fourth thing is, let's talk about context training. Context significantly impacts how our brains will process information. creating positive context for your dating life by designing like something you do before a date, like a pre-date ritual or a pre-conversation self-pep talk that puts you in a positive mindset. You could create a playlist of songs that you want to reinforce what you want. So, some sort of upbeat, excited music, or if you want to go there feeling chill and relaxed, maybe some ambient music. And you also want to choose date locations that align with your relationship goals. So, you want to go somewhere that you're going to be comfortable with this person. So, if you're not comfortable going to a bar and having a drink on the first date, then don't go there. Don't set yourself up for that, because the environment will physically and mentally create direct influences on how your brain processes in response to dating situations. So, finally, let's address verbal communication practices. Spoken language is processed more naturally than written language. And use this to your advantage by practicing speaking your desires out loud, sometimes during your day when you have some time alone. I do this while I'm at work, outside, walking around, at the gym, in my own head. You don't need a lot of time for this. I recommend habit stacking, as James Clear recommends in his books, Atomic Habits. I highly recommend that book. It is incredible. But I got this one idea from him. It's called habit stacking. So basically, you take one habit that you already have, like brushing your teeth each morning or in the evening, and you practice your self talk while brushing. So you're putting those two habits together. This is so that your brain recognizes the new association of habits. So it says, oh, I'm brushing my teeth. Now I automatically practice self talk at the same time. I'm so excited about this topic. I don't know if you could tell that I'm talking really fast. This is how I am when I'm really excited about a topic. Anyway, eventually, this habit stacking is just something that you do each time you brush your teeth. So when you brush your teeth, you're going to immediately start positive self-talk to yourself. And by the way, this is actually one of my stacked habits that I use. Besides walking outside and at the gym, I do it while I brush my teeth. So another thing you can do to hear how you speak naturally is record yourself talking about what you want in a relationship. And then you can listen back and note any like sneaky negative statements that sneak in there, that are like in your subconscious mind that you automatically say. These things that need reframing. This verbal practice can help strengthen the neural pathways associated with positive relationship expectations. All right, so you're asking, how do we fix this, right? We need to rewire our language to focus on what we want, not what we're trying to avoid. So instead of, I don't want to be alone, make it, I'm ready for a meaningful connection. Instead of, I won't settle for less, I'm attracting someone who matches my values. Instead of, I can't handle another toxic relationship, I'm creating healthy, nurturing relationships. So, what was common in those three statements that I just said? The first one is, I don't want to be alone. The don't. The second one was, I won't settle for less. The won't. And the third one, I can't handle another toxic relationship. The can't. So, don't, want, and can't. Those are the three negative words in there. And instead, you flip it to something positive that works for you, that you actually believe. Think about the difference in energy between these statements. One set keeps you focused on your past, your fear, while the other one propels you towards what you actually desire. All right, so I want to do a quick exercise. If you have the time to stop and grab a journal or open your notes app. If not, you can do this in your head or you can come back later. All right, so I want you to write down 3 thoughts that you frequently have about dating that start with don't, won't, or can't. After you have these, underline what comes after these words. This is what your brain is actually focusing on and creating in your life. So anything after the negative word is what you're actually creating. This is also while you're thinking about it. Remember, this is not just about writing it down. The writing is just the practice I want you to do so that you can start to see what you're actually manifesting. Now, with those 3 statements, I want you to transform each one into a positive statement that focuses on what you want to create. And you can feel free to pause the podcast and do this mini exercise. Come back to it at any time. All right, so pause it. If you want, come back to it. Let's move on. Okay, so this connects directly to mind rule number 5. Your mind will create evidence to support what you believe. When you combine this with about how our brains process negative language, it creates a powerful insight. By focusing on what we don't want, we're actually making our brains work overtime processing those very concepts. Guys, context matters big time. How we frame our thoughts and statements can significantly and will impact how our brains process them. So when we frame everything in terms of what we don't want, we're training our brains to focus on those unwanted scenarios. All right, so I decided to include a little hypnotic journey in here for you guys. Feel free to just listen to this, listen to my words, or if you have a moment to sit and close your eyes and follow along, you can do that as well. All right, so finding a quiet spot. I want you to either close your eyes or keep your eyes open and focus to a point directly in front of you. And if you're keeping your eyes open, just pay attention to that spot in front of you. Focus on it. Notice if the spot moves or if it stays still. And maybe your eyes start to get heavier. Maybe they want to close. Maybe they want to open. Feel free to close your eyes as you continue listening to my words. As you relax deeper, begin to notice the words that often float through your mind about relationships. Don't try to change them. Just observe them, like watching clouds pass across the sky. Now imagine these thoughts appearing before you as written words. Notice which ones contain don't, can't, or won't. See how these words might be creating patterns in your life. With each breath, imagine these negative words beginning to fade, leaving only the essence of what you truly want. If I don't want to be alone, appears, watch as don't and alone fade away, leaving space for new possibilities. Feel how different your body feels when you focus on what you want to create rather than what you want to avoid. Notice the shift in energy, the opening of possibilities. As you prepare to return to full wakefulness, notice that your unconscious mind is already beginning to create new patterns that align with your true desires. Take one final deep breath, bringing with you this new awareness, the power of your words. When you're ready, gently open your eyes, knowing you can return to this peaceful state of awareness anytime you need to examine your self-talk patterns. Continue listening to my voice if you're in a relaxed state. Today, we've explored research from 2 different studies done in the last 2 years about how our brains process negative language. First, reading negative statements requires more cognitive effort than hearing them, and our brains activate inhibitory circuits when processing negatives. Second, that context plays a crucial role in how we interpret information in our brains. But this isn't just about changing words. It's about understanding and working with your brain's natural processes to create the dating life you want. When you say you want instead of what you don't want, you're not just being more attractive to potential matches. You're actually making it easier for both your brains to process and manifest those desires. If you recognize yourself in these patterns of speaking, thinking, or texting or even in your dating profile, I would love to hear from you. Please reach out at intentionallysinglepodcast@gmail.com and share your most common negative statements. Together, we can work on reframing them to create exactly what you want. Working with language patterns requires guidance and support. If you are ready to transform how you talk to yourself about love and relationships, let's work one-on-one together. It is incredibly fun, and you're going to get so much out of it. Email me to learn more about my private coaching programs where we are going to rewire these patterns for lasting change. As we get more into these episodes, I'm really finding incredibly fun topics to share, stuff that you can take into your everyday life and use. I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about next week, as I'm currently trying to figure that out. I'm going to let it be a surprise. But if today's episode about negative language patterns resonated with you, next week we're going to give you some more tools to learn more about these types of ideas. I really want to thank you for tuning in to the show. I am Lauren Jean. I'm reminding you that your words create your reality. Choose them wisely. And until next time, please keep your heart open to possibilities. I'll see you next week.